What up, guys? So today I've got a new camera. So I bought some new gadgets recently, and I'm gonna use them because one of you guys replied back or commented saying that I had a crappy camera, which you were kind of right. And so I wanted to get a new camera, and I've got some new gadgets on the way, and figured we would get started with this new camera. By the way, can you see? For some of you guys that always talk about this being a green screen, this is not a green screen. The way it just the light sort of reflects off. So none of this is a green screen. So today's question comes from Jackie, and before I get started, big shout out to my buddy Art down in Jacksonville. He's got a good gym there. And recently I got a question from Jackie, and Jackie has a, her name's Jacqueline. Whenever I see the name Jacqueline, I always think of that Key and Peele skit where he says like Jaqueline. So Jaqueline's got a question. I'm just kidding, Jackie. She's got a question, and she says that recently she was in a competition where they had a situation where basically she was either going to get first or fourth depending on how she won, because that was like the competition scoring system. I think she was probably involved in like a round robin or something where basically no matter you win or lose, you go up against a certain number of people, and each time you win or lose, you get like a certain number of points. But she says that in the finals match that she had, she was winning, right? She was winning and she had 1 minute left, and then the person took over the match, got some points scored, and then took over from there, and she ended up losing within the last minute. And she says she's not sure why she's having such a hard time dealing with it. She's lost other matches before, but for some reason, she keeps thinking about it, thinking about that last minute. It keeps replaying over and over again in her head. And she's wondering if I've experienced the same thing, how I came out about it, loud cars, right? How I came to overcome it, and how I dealt with the whole situation. So Jackie, thank you for the question, and you bet I've dealt with it before. There's two matches in particular that stand out in my memory. Like when I close my eyes, I can still see them to this day, that were kind of the most painful matches that I can sort of think of. One from wrestling, one from jiu-jitsu as a black belt. So we'll talk about them. First one in wrestling. When I was in a high school wrestling, one of my worst matches, painful matches that I had, it was my senior year. I was up against a guy who was actually ranked in state. I was not at the time. And so again, this is a tough match for me, and I'm winning. I'm winning. I'm up 2 points. And the clock is coming down to the wire. It's almost over. And so for some reason, I remember I was in my stance looking, and I look over at the clock for just a second. 7 seconds left on the clock. I look back. So I'm going from here to here. And I look down. He's shooting underneath me. He picks me up, boom, dumps me from a double leg. As soon as I land, I plant right on my back because it just took me by surprise. So he got 2 points for his takedown, and then he got points for the near fall. He won the match within the last 7 seconds of it, right? I was beating this person, and then I lost in the last 7 seconds. And that was a tough one. Just like you were talking about it replaying in over your head, that match played over and over and over again in my mind. And I think it's because I had the win in my hands. It was there. And then it got snatched from me. I'll talk about more than that in a second. The second match to bring up was when I was a black belt, 2013. I was competing up against a guy who was really tough, and he started the match off by sweeping me, got him out, was up 6 points, and then I swept him and rallied back and got 15 points. So it's 6-15. I got a 9-point lead. It was under 2 minutes. I think it was like a minute and a half. I'm inside of his guard, and I'm like, man, minute and a half. Whew, I got this. Smooth sailing ahead. I'm going to win this one. I feel it, right? Then he goes for an armbar, gets me caught, and for some damn reason, instead of stacking and doing what I know what I need to do to cover my hand, I pulled away and made the armbar worse and got submitted by an armbar. Man, it sucked. It was, again, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and this is a match where I had it right in the bag, right? I almost won, and then in the last minute, because I relaxed a little bit, I lost. And again, that one stung. That match replayed over and over again in my mind, like for up until the next year when I went against this guy again, and I eventually beat him. But it was one of those things where it replayed. And again, going back to your situation, why are you having such a hard time with it? I imagine the same reason I had a hard time with it, where it's one of these things where you tasted victory. You had it. It would be like giving someone who's like super thirsty, giving them a little sip of water and then taking it away from them. Right? Or giving some kid a piece of candy, letting them nibble, and then taking it away from them. It would be infuriating. And you had the win in your hands, and it got snatched right at the last minute, right? So a couple things that came away from this. One is that I never made the mistake of ever looking at the clock ever again. Now, sometimes if I'm in side control these days and I'm really tight, I might look just real quick, but I don't look very long, never when I'm standing. And also with the loss that I had from the person that beat me as a black belt where he armbarred me, I made the improvement of I never let up. So in that match, I relaxed for a moment because I felt like I was good. I was like, you know what? I'm okay. But never again. And I went against both of these guys. I went against the guy who beat me at the last minute in wrestling. I beat him in regionals later on that year. And we had a very close match then, but again, I never let up. I never started looking at the clock or doing silly stuff. And then the guy that armbarred me, I beat him later on the next year. And again, he even got me in an armbar in that match, but this time I was ready for it. And I never let up on him. And we went down to the wire. I beat him by points, but I never relaxed to where I could let him back into the match. And what I would say for you is this match, it stings, right? And that sting can be frustrating, but it can be really good too, because what it does is it makes you emotionally hot, so to speak. So think about glass or think about metal, right? You have to heat those things up first before you can mold them and use them, right? Or mold them and change them. You can't really do it when it's cold. You know, glass will break and metal will kind of bend a little bit, but when it's hot, that's when you can really move it around and change it. And people are kind of the same way when they're emotionally charged up, when they're hot, so to speak. They will make changes. So for instance, when you have something that stings, when you have a failure, when you have a loss, when you have something that really gets at you and stings at you, it makes you take notice of what's going on more than if everything's going okay. Because if everything's going okay and things are just even kill, it's very easy to be complacent. It's very easy to not go back to your mistakes, right? But when you feel the sting of the loss, the failure, all that sort of stuff, it really it smacks you right in the face and makes you want to take notice and say, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board. What did I do wrong? What do I need to fix? That kind of stuff. And so you can use that. So what I would say to you, Jackie, is one, that's probably why it stings, because you almost won, right? Go back to that match. I'm sure you've got video of it because everybody's got a phone to record with, right? Go back to those matches and go back to that match that you lost and watch it again and again and look at what you did wrong. What could you have done differently? What could you have done to make the situation happen in a positive way? What could you have done to win that match? What could you have done to win that match? And after you figure that out, talk to your coaches, whatever you got to do, then you make that first and foremost in your mind. And when you're on the match training in the gym, you make sure you keep that stuff in mind. So this way you improve upon those things. That's what I did with my situations. I made sure that I never looked at the clock when I was in other competitions or in the gym. And when I got back to the gym, I made sure to constantly work on my ability to keep the pace up and keep the pressure up throughout a 8 to 10 minute match. And so that's what I would tell you. I would tell you to use that sting, use that failure to push you forward. And yeah, so that's the video. Hopefully that's helpful to you, Jackie. And I'll talk to you guys next time.